Aloha and welcome to this week's video. So this week I'm going to be finishing up the double-headed axe. This was a super fun piece. I did a lot of testing with it, or rather a lot of idea testing, and it finally came out with a good final concept. This piece is actually being made for the Polyverse. There's a YouTube channel, I have it linked below, and then it's also an Instagram, the Polyverse, or at the Polyverse, same as the YouTube channel. Go ahead and check them out. They are making a new series that's like a Hawaiian god stuck in modern day, and so this piece is going to be one of his weapons. And so I was super excited to work with them on this piece and build it out. The design for it is kind of a mix between different cultures. It has some Nordic designs with the bearded axe. It is a double-headed axe, which I know people have already told me, like, hey, that's not, they didn't actually use those. It's more for fun. It's not necessarily overly traditional. And then it has a lot of Hawaiian style influences. So the sharp angles, the diamonds, and then obviously I'm going to be putting shark teeth on it. And then I really liked the way that design work with the fire, the burning on the edges turned out. It looked absolutely gorgeous. So the final stages here is I'm just going to be cleaning up some of these internal edges. I'm going to be sanding the piece down to 220 and then going to be putting the shark teeth in place. Before I do that though, I need to cut the channels. To cut the channels, I'm going to do the same thing that I always do. I use a tungsten carbide bit on my Dremel. Had some sawdust on it. I kicked it on there. You can see it kicking out. It was kind of funny. Now the end grain on here that I was cutting into is pretty solid, so I ended up burning the wood as I was going through, but it's not too big of a deal because I'll run it back and forth a few times and get it to depth. It just made it a little bit harder to cut it in. When the koa is hard like that and dense, it can sometimes want to slip out on you, so it can be a little bit of a challenge. And as I was working on the piece, I noticed a couple spots here and there, and you'll see me do that a couple times with the CA glue. All I'm doing there is filling in some of those small natural inclusions that are in the wood, filling them out so that they don't spread, and then it also makes it look a little bit cleaner. And then I'm going to go ahead and set the teeth. And then once the teeth set, I realized that so the entire time I was thinking about the face of the axe, and the koa wood is absolutely gorgeous, and so I didn't want to take away from the beauty of the curl, but at the same time the axe head was really bland, and so I wanted to do something, and I had the idea while looking at another piece online to put in these. And so holes are oftentimes added to larger pieces to reduce weight. So holes in very specific places so as not to decrease the strength or structural integrity of the piece, but help with reducing weight. And so that's what I'm doing here. But instead of having it perfectly mirror on both sides, I'm having it inverted. So the large hole is on the top side on one edge, and then the large hole is on the bottom side on the other edge. The biggest trick here was just making sure that the holes line up from side to side, especially since they're different sizes, they mirror each other. So getting them to line up was actually a little bit of a challenge, but I was able to get it fairly decent just using that long level there. And it actually added enough character to the face that it was perfect. I didn't need to do anything else after that. And there's still quite a bit of material left in between each of those holes, and so that shouldn't weaken the blade too much. It should still be fairly stout, especially since the grain goes long ways, and so there's still a lot of structural integrity there, a lot of meat left in material. One of the last steps though I needed to do was put in these pearl inlays. I did a circular inlay, and they're just going right here next to the handle. I'm using super glue and then using the accelerant to dry the super glue around the edges. That won't dry the glue underneath. It just dries the glue around the edges so that it holds it in place, and then the glue underneath will take just a little bit more time to dry, but not bad. And doing the same thing on the other side. And then once that sets, I can then start working on tapping in the holes on the teeth. I did forget one step, and so I ended up, after I finished tapping in the holes with my tungsten carbide bit on the bull shark teeth, I went back and I cleaned up the excess epoxy that I had on the teeth. The marking that you're seeing me do here, this is just in preparation for drilling the holes. But before I do that, I'm gonna clean up the epoxy. And so the reason why the teeth are kind of sitting in place now is because I put just a tiny bit of epoxy inside of the channel, and it helps them stay in place while I tap and lash them in. But the primary mechanical hold is the lashing. And then I can go ahead and drill in the holes where the lashing is going to come in and do some final sanding. I am going to sand the whole piece down to 320. I do have to be very careful. There's a lot of edge work that I put into place. It's really hard to tell because of the curl, the natural grain of the wood. You'll see it a lot more after I oil it. But this is just doing the final sanding, getting the entire piece down to 320 and getting it ready so that I can oil the piece. There's a couple of rough sections, so it took a little bit of time to get it all finalized and get those edges nice and clean and looking the way that I wanted them to look. I also wanted to make sure that those inlays, those pearl inlays, were nice and smooth and clean. And once I got that finished, I was able to start oiling the piece. And man, is this absolutely gorgeous. So you can start to see just that beautiful curl that goes along the face of the blade. And this is why I didn't want to add too many details. It's because I really wanted the natural color of the wood, the natural look of the wood, to be the primary focus, which is actually a little bit more of a Hawaiian style way of doing things. So if you look at a lot of traditional Hawaiian pieces, they do a lot of intricate carvings on some, but on a lot of other pieces they let the grain of the wood tell its own story. And so here's the finished oiled piece. It's not pow yet, it's not finished yet. I still need to lash in the teeth. I need to put in a hand wrap, but it's mostly done. And with that oiled section, as I was lashing in the teeth, I didn't realize my camera was so far forward. So you can't really see most of what I'm doing, which is kind of unfortunate. So I'm skipping most of it here. The only thing that I'm including is this last little bit of section that you're able to see with the camera. It was kind of unfortunate that it happened that way, but I'm doing a basic triangle pattern on the teeth and then knotting on the ends. I did accidentally, as I was lashing one side, I finished one side completely, and then I started the other side, and I accidentally cut my lashing with the tooth. I pulled it tight right across the edge of one of the teeth, and it just sliced it. And it kind of irritated me because it was a bunch of waste time. So that's why you see me in different clothes. I came back the next day and finished lashing up this final side. This time I was careful not to cut any of the lashing with the edge of the bull shark tooth. It is pretty sharp and it is slightly serrated. The bull sharks aren't as serrated as the tiger shark teeth, but they still do have a serrate, and so you draw something across it and it'll slice. So here is the final piece. I forgot to turn my camera on for lashing in that handle wrap, but it's just a basic handle wrap. Nothing too special there, but man, does that look absolutely gorgeous. I love the way that the burnt wood accents on the other side. I'm really happy I did that rather than like a paint or a coloration. You can still kind of see the grain through that dark burn section, so it looks awesome. I love how this piece turned out. Absolutely beautiful piece. Even with those holes, it was still fairly top heavy, but it's kind of expected just because of how large the axe is. And then here's a shot of it outside in the natural lighting. You can really see the curl on that. Man, is that gorgeous. Oh, I love this piece. This was an absolute ton of fun. I really enjoyed kind of designing it, figuring out how I wanted the whole thing to lay out, and then just the natural process of building it and the way that it evolved. If you liked it, go ahead and leave me a like and subscribe. Make sure and check out the Polyverse. I'm super excited to send them this piece. I'll be shipping this to them probably this next week. And so they'll be, hopefully one day in the near future, it'll show up. But it was a ton of fun. Mahalo plenty for everyone that follows along and watches my videos. Go ahead and give me a like and subscribe, and head over to the Polyverse and give them a view too. They're a new channel. And if you have any ideas for any new pieces in the future, let me know. I love seeing the comments below. And I'll see you next time in the next video. Mahalo plenty. Aloha.